Hi, my name is David Maldo, and welcome to Let's Do Video, where we talk about business communications with an obvious focus on video. And today I'm joined here by Scott Wharton. I appreciate you coming. Scott just got a new role at Logitech. Scott, can you please introduce yourself and explain a little bit about your new role and your history in the industry?
Sure. Scott Wharton, my new role is I'm going to be the general manager of the video collaboration group at Logitech. And that is not the life-size division. That's really the Logitech video conferencing products. We can talk more about that. But I've been in the industry probably about 20 years, starting at Vocaltech, which was the first VoIP company, and BroadSoft, which many people know, running global marketing. And then I started my own company, Vidtel, which was really the first cloud-based video conferencing service. So I've been in the industry a long time and really excited about the role here at Logitech.
You know, I know you from the Vidtel days, and it wasn't that long ago, but in our industry, so much happens. It seems like a long time ago. And it was an exciting time because the way I see it, video conferencing had been pretty much a meeting room game for a long time. We had better cameras, higher resolution, but it was meeting room solutions. And when Vidtel come around, we were starting to get beyond that. One of Vidtel's things that it was known for was able to bring in through interop people on desktops and whatever into those meeting rooms, and it was a big game changer. And I think since the Vidtel days, while you had some time in between, things have been changing at a much rapider rate. It's new changes every day, and we have trends like huddle rooms and these persistent chat Slack solutions that are so hot, and more affordable cameras and everything that's going on. I wanted to give you a chance to, coming back in now, some of your thoughts on everything that's happened since the Vidtel days, basically.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, part of how I think about Vidtel when I reflect back on it is that Vidtel was really a company that was a transition story. So if you looked at video conferencing, it was really dominated by the big room players that had hardware, but there were also these emerging software players. And we were really creating a bridge between those worlds. So you could be in your big boardroom conversation, but also bring people in with Skype, et cetera. I think part of what's changed is that we're kind of near the end of that transition where you look at the high-end systems, they really are in decline and/or really shrinking as a service. And these new services that were low-end, I think, are now the norm in the mainstream. And I think it's part of why I'm very interested with Logitech, because they really are picking up on that trend of how do you go from high-end to personal room systems, but then you have this gap if everybody's at their desktop. What do you do in the conference room? You don't want to go in there and put this laptop at the end of the table and have everybody huddle around. So I think we're solving a really big problem in that we almost overshot from high end to low end. There's something missing in the middle.
Yeah, it's interesting. I never thought of it quite that way, but there's definitely been a shift where it was all about the meeting room, and companies like Vidtel brought in a way to kind of enhance the meeting room experience by bringing in more people and any more connections. And now it seems like the meeting room is still important, but the main focus is that anyone can connect to anyone from any time. I mean, there doesn't have to be a meeting room involved, but a meeting room usually is involved. Most meetings, it's one of the connections is the old school meeting room, so they still have to be good quality. We can't, it's moved from the central focus, but it's still important.
Yeah, I would actually argue that the meeting rooms become more important because one of the big trends in corporate America worldwide is people are moving from these closed conference rooms around the rim of the company toward an open floor plan. I think almost all companies are doing that. Logitech has that here where literally there is no office. From the CEO down, nobody has an office. We all sit in this open floor plan. So if you look at it that way, you can't really have video calls anymore. It just bothers everyone. So you need to, when you have your meetings, you move into these huddle rooms. So all around Logitech, and I think companies around the world, you have these small rooms that people go in for meetings. But then what are you going to do? Are you going to sit there with a tablet and have 8 people look around it and scream from the back and nobody can hear you? So I think we overshot where if everybody's working from home or they're teleworking, fine. But when you're in this open floor plan, you have to have more of a solution for the meeting room, and I think that's where our focus is right now in solving that problem of overshooting and then coming back to the room.
In the old days, and by old days I mean 3 to 5 years ago, we needed video because, the meeting room was basically a status meeting. Once in a week, your sales team meets and goes over everything from the week. So if someone can't be there, it's okay if they call in on the phone. but today we're not doing status meetings, we're doing working sessions. Someone's bringing up the Excel sheet, they're bringing up the, whatever charts and graphs, and everybody's digging in and working. For that kind of meeting, you can't really, you can, but you're not going to get it done if you're calling in on the phone.
No, you can't. And I also saw this, there was a great blog by Twitter last week that talked about, they did an analysis of all of their meetings and how many meetings required people in different cities. And they found that the average meeting had 3 or 4 cities in it. So if you think about a company like Twitter or other companies that are really trying to move fast, they said that video conferencing is critical to them moving fast, because you have people who are in headquarters and then you have other people remote, or you're sitting in a meeting room. You really need to be able to have meeting room, remote, different cities. And in fact, Twitter is using the Google for Chromebox, which is all using Logitech cameras in all of their meeting rooms around the world.
I guess it's the difference between talking about work and doing work. And if, like you said, you have teams in 3 or 4 different cities and they're getting together, it's not enough just to kind of share over audio. They really need to be able to get together and dig in. And you also alluded to something that a lot of analysts had written about, and I think Logitech gets unfairly blamed for this. It's not your guys' fault, but you make such great desktop webcams, which I'm using right now, and they're so affordable. I think a lot of people say, hey, we got this huddle space. People want to call in. I'm going to put a webcam on a monitor and we're good to go. But they're designed for what we're doing right now. They're designed to capture someone sitting at a desk, and it's not the ideal experience. So it's not your fault, but I think people are saying, don't make that mistake.
Well, I think people did. They were doing with what they were giving solution for what they had. So they were basically trying to recreate the room system. So they took a webcam and they jury rigged a USB speakerphone, and maybe they threw a computer into the closet. And essentially, that is what a room system does. So I think part of what we're trying to do, with Google and others, is to do that in a more methodical, mainstream way. So what kind of camera do you have instead of a webcam? A much higher quality camera with a wide view of a lens, so you can not only just see 2 people in the room, but kind of capture everyone in the room. Then you want to have a good quality speakerphone, so if people are sitting 5 or 10 feet away, go, what? Repeat that again. What did you say? So, and then we joke about maybe our tagline should be huddle, don't cuddle. You have all these people, awkwardly together around a laptop or a tablet. Like it just doesn't work. So. I think it's solving the problem in a way that makes sense without jury rigging what people are doing today.
Yeah, and it wouldn't have been possible until really recently, because we really only had a choice between the $100 webcam and the $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 room solution. Now we have things somewhere in between. I think you're on the CC3000E right now.
That's right.
And that's exactly what we're talking about. It's quality for a huddle room or a meeting room above a webcam, but without the complication and expense of the old school solutions.
Yeah, and this is, I think, where I was really interested in Logitech, where all the pieces started to come together, is that you had all these services that were really ubiquitous: Skype, Zoom, BlueJeans, et cetera. And then you had Moore's Law kicking in, where instead of having a very high quality camera at $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 traditionally, you could have it all together. Like the CC3000 is $999, and then we could have a range of products that would really take advantage of mass market. So anywhere from $250 to, let's say, $1,500 as a range, where a business of any size could afford it. Or if you have 10 rooms that are using telepresence, but you got 1,000 conference rooms, and how do you enable it so that it's in every conference room? You get video, just like we have this idea of audio being in every room. And I think we're now at a point today where all the pieces are in place to really support that. I think the biggest challenge that I've found is that people don't really know they have a problem, right? Because when you ask people, what do you think of using, their current video services? Most people would say, I love it. It's great. The quality is finally good enough. And sometimes it's free or near free. But I think what they don't realize, if you poke a little bit, you go, well, what about in the meeting room? They go, oh yeah, I don't really like that. It kind of sucks. So I think part of our challenge is really educating people that they actually have a problem. But then once we point it out to them, they go, yeah, I think that it really is a problem. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah, sometimes people need to see the light or be shown the better way. It's the analogy I always use is, I used to work in an office that had a very loud air conditioning, and I didn't notice it, but it was grating on me and it was weighing me down. And once in a while it would shut off and it would be like, oh, what a relief. I can get my work done now. This problem I had is solved. But I didn't realize I had the problem until someone pointed it out. So I guess it's people are suffering through bad meetings and not realizing.
Yeah, or the equivalent is everybody sits at their desk, even if you're sitting next to each other. Sometimes you see people sitting at their desk, but what the IT people don't like is that, all right, now you got 6 people sitting at their desk, boy, your bandwidth is going to go really get shot because people are using 6 times the amount of bandwidth versus being in the meeting room, or doing what people do in meeting room, look at each other in the eye, collaborate, whiteboard. So making sure that you don't lose something by going to a lower cost platform in video.
Yeah, there's still a benefit of, as much as we love video, of being there in person in the meeting. I still think the physical meeting room space is key. I just love the idea of that if someone can't make it, having them be there as much as possible through not just video, but through a well set up video deployment in the room.
No, absolutely. And then going back to the point we had earlier, if you really are a company that deals with people in different cities, and today that could be smaller companies like yours where people are distributed back up to larger companies like Logitech, if you have 3 or 4 people in a room and then someone else is dialing in on audio or they have a bad experience, they're just kind of left out of the meeting. So part of what I've observed at VidTel is that there's a cultural tipping point. So some organizations, if you have 8 people on a call with audio and 2 want to use video, that's kind of weird, right? But then the flip happens. If you have 8 people on video and then 2 are in audio, they're almost excluded from the meeting. So I think it almost forces people to go either 100% audio or 100 video. And I've seen a lot of organizations really tip very fast to video once they get to that point where you don't want to be left out anymore because then you're not effective.
Yeah, it definitely feels if enough people in the call are on video, the ones on audio are definitely second-class citizens.
Or it's kind of awkward, like, why am I transmitting my video to you, but you're not doing it to me? Like, there's like a fairness issue there.
Yeah, it does feel a little weird because sometimes I'm doing this all the time, and sometimes I send an invite to someone and they jump in on audio, and I'm smiling at the camera, but it's definitely a weird dynamic. I wanted to jump into a topic we've kind of touched upon it a little bit, but I think one of the things that's very fortunate for a company like Logitech is all this is becoming easier because of the wide variety of software solutions out there. I mean, a camera's no good if there's no way for me to connect from you to me on it. During the VidTel days when I was covering cloud video was a new thing, there was a small handful of players that I was interested in. And now there's probably over 100. It's gotten really big, and some of them are kind of doing the VidTel thing, focusing on interop. Some of them are just doing their own thing, and a lot of them are similar. Some are unique. But I was wondering, as someone who's watched this industry, how long do you think we can sustain? I mean, we're growing now. There's sales for everyone, but how long do you think we could sustain this many companies, and what do you think is going to happen?
Well, I think the market's going to bifurcate into 2 sets of players. So one set of players will be the ones that have their own technology. So Skype, Google, BlueJeans, Zoom, et cetera. And they'll be able to sell end-to-end, so their own technology, and sell to end users. They may use channels, but it's really going to be a contained solution. And then I still think you'll see some that are using some technology, and the ones we've seen have been more like Pexip and Econo and others, where they're taking a complicated technology and embedding it together into a service. But I think over time, as you move to more of a, if you're selling at $10 a month, there's not really a lot of room for someone to take that technology and resell it. So on the high end, you'll probably still continue to see a lot of smaller companies that will be able to have a lower cost acquisition. But when you start getting more of the WebEx type collaboration services, I think you'll see more integrated service and selling together, and you won't see that many, just because they'll get economies of scale in both technology and marketing and network effects.
And from a Logitech perspective, you guys really don't care. You're not picking favorites. You don't work better with one than with another. Just as long as there's something for your cameras to transmit through.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's interesting because when I joined the company, some people looked at my background and said, all right, I have a software and services background. Is Logitech going to get into that business? And I said emphatically no. Like, what we're really good at is we make great mass market hardware at a high quality and reasonable price. And there's some other great services out there. So we absolutely don't want to compete with those services. And what we really want to do is be able to create a great extensible environment, so an SDK, where people can really customize and configure the integration, and then build on that. Like, I think there's a ton of opportunity for us to work with the software and service providers to, everyone jokes about it, but fixing that first 5 minutes in the meeting room. And we've got some really interesting ideas about if you combine hardware and software, how do you go in and how does it just know that it's me or you? And how does it just start up automatically in a way that you just can't do when you're a service only or hardware only? You need to put those two things together. So I think there's a lot of really exciting collaboration that we can do to make and kind of fix that problem that everybody is really grappling with forever.
It's funny. It all leads to the same place, which is the experience. Fixing that first 5 minutes of a meeting. We all know the hurdles and hiccups with video conferencing. And when I used to talk to you about this, we were looking at solving it from a software perspective because you were a software guy. And now we're looking at solving it through a combination of software hardware because now you're a hardware guy. So it's whatever perspective we're coming from at the end of the day, it's video meetings are amazing, much better than they've ever been, but there's still some experience issues that can be fixed.
Yeah, and I think the analogy that I like is going to be something more like, I'll pick Apple Pay. Like we all have credit cards, and they kind of work, and they take some time. But Apple Pay came along and said, all right, we're going to integrate the software, the hardware, the point of sale, and now you just go in and tap. Now, behind the scenes, there was some amazing technology and integration happen, and it seems like a very small thing, but the ability to move from plastic credit cards and fraud to Apple Pay was a huge, I think will be a huge leap forward. I see a lot of opportunities of video conferencing where maybe people say, oh, it's not a big deal, but I think that seamlessness that everyone's looking for, there's a lot behind the scenes, but it's going to take an end-to-end view of things. That's part of why I'm excited to be on the Logitech side. I was always frustrated on the software side. There were so many things I wanted to do, but at the end of the day, you needed a hardware partner. Now I could flip it around and really understand what the software companies need and be able to provide them that, and maybe more than they were even thinking about.
The Apple analogy really works well because in my mind, at the end of the day, they're a software company. I mean, the iPhone really is the operating system. But to make it work the way they wanted it to work and get what they considered the ideal experience, they had to make their own hardware as well. So having your fingers in the hardware really gives you a lot more control over, again, what we're really looking for, which is fixing that end user experience.
Definitely.
So let's look forward, and this is always just a fun part, but the next 5 years. So we're going to the huddle rooms, we're going mobile, these persistent chat things are popular, everything we've been talking about. I have a hard time believing it'll just be more of the same in the next 5 years because it's been a dramatic change every 6 months. What are your thoughts? I know there's no way to read the future, but what are your thoughts of the next 5 years?
Well, I think that if you look at the penetration of video conferencing services into the mainstream business around the world, it's still relatively small. And even though people like you and I use it, or people who are in tech companies, I think there's a huge amount that all of us can do to increase the penetration of services. Part of it was cost, part of it was experience. I think part of it is fixing the problem in the conference room that we're working on. But I think a lot of it is just going to be more usage, and then part of it's just Moore's law. I think maybe 4K. You say, oh, it's so far off and not interesting. But we talk. If you think about a 4K video call in 5 years from now, and people having gigabyte bandwidth at their house, I mean, people say, oh, the video will never be good enough. But I saw this interesting study in USA Today. They said, all right, what would you do with Google Fiber? They didn't interview people if you had a gig of bandwidth up and down. And the majority of people said they would do HD video conferencing, but they didn't realize it only takes like 3.5 megs. So I was thinking, what do you do with the other 990, 6.5 megs of bandwidth? There's stuff like having holograms and 3D video conferencing that I think people think is very futuristic, but I think it's actually, if you look at that 5-year period, you could be seeing some stuff that just blows people away in terms of processing, 3D, 4K, that really makes the experience that we have today pale in comparison. So I'm pretty bullish about how much progress we'll be able to make just in terms of that user experience overall.
Yeah, I think in terms of hardware and technology, 4K will be easy. We're getting so good at this stuff. The developments are happening faster and faster, and the expression, oh, anything can be done with software, it's kind of used as a joke, but there is some truth there. I also think part of it will be social. There's something I do now. I call it the VC meeting dance, and it's one of the problems with video conferencing. If I want to set up a phone meeting with someone, I send them an email and I say, call me at this number at this time. I try to push everyone onto video with me. So what I have to do is I have to send them an email saying, hey, if it's okay, I prefer to do this over video. You can join at this link, but if you can't join at this link, if you don't have a webcam, here's a phone number. You could also dial in, let me know if you have any questions. It's this whole big thing where it's just so easy to say, call me at this number. And it's getting better because when I do that, people used to send me an email back with questions. And now a lot of times I just say, yeah, I'll click the link, I'll be in the video. So we're getting there, but it's still an extra few steps.
Yeah, I saw a couple of things on that. I saw some data from HSBC, which is a big Cisco user, and they said that when they went from having people have to go into meeting rooms to having everyone have their own personal ID, the usage went up exponentially. So the idea is if anybody could call each other at any time, that it dramatically changed the way people had meetings. It wasn't just an ad hoc send you a note back and forth. It was the ability to call you. So I think a lot of the current programs today either have that or they're adding in a link where you could IM to someone, then they click and you just join. I think the other thing that's going to happen is for more of the one-on-one meetings, if you think about Apple FaceTime, you just call someone with a telephone number and it just works. So I think you'll see more of that on the mobile side where the one-on-one kind of conversations, it won't be that link back and forth, but it'll just be, I dial you at your email address just like I would dial your mobile, and the video it just works. I think Apple's done a really good job with that, and it's kind of incumbent on the other, I guess, Google-oriented people to put that in place.
Yeah, I've always thought one of the big hurdles for mobile video conferencing is if I want to call someone, my instinct is to go to my contact list. And with video, you don't do that. I have to use, if I want to do life size, I got to go to the life size app. If I want to do BlueJeans, I got to go to the BlueJeans app. And I have to remember which people are on which app. And I heard an announcement recently that Cisco is talking to Apple to get some hooks into the contact list. So I think that'll be a huge win for Cisco if I'm able to go to my iPhone, go to my contact list, and do a video meeting on WebEx or whatever.
Yeah, so my view here is maybe a little non-traditional. I actually think that there are a whole set of players that are not in the video space that will come to dominate that area, and I think it's going to be the IM players. Because if you think about the natural flow of how people communicate now on mobile, it's like, yo, how you doing? And then you escalate from within IM. And unlike Apple, that's going to be purely Apple-based. The IM platforms like WhatsApp, and they're ubiquitous, right? So I actually think I think that Facebook will be, in 5 years from now, will be one of the dominant players in the video conferencing space, even though they're hardly a player yet, because of that ubiquity of you send IM and then you escalate.
I think of all the ways to start a video meeting, that's the most natural way. That's the way my team does it all the time. We're using Slack now, so we're on IM all day, and back and forth, look at this proposal, send me your edits, but hey, let's just jump on video, boom, here's the link, and we're on. The problem is I'm not on IM with everyone yet. Some people I still talk to on email, so I have to do that little dance. But I definitely agree that it's weird. It would be weird for me to just call a video and have it pop up and I'm there in your office. There needs to be some knocking at the door. And I think the IM is a great way to knock at the door. So I agree. And with everyone using Facebook to IM each other, and I think they have they're always talking about some sort of Google integrations or whatnot. But once they get it good, that could be a major video conferencing platform.
No, I mean, Facebook used to have their relationship with Microsoft and Skype, and they unceremoniously dumped them as a partner. So they really are building their own technology. And I think if you look at what they're doing between WhatsApp and Messenger, where they have 2 billion people online, that's going to be the way people predominantly do it for consumer. Now, business is probably going to be different. I think we may see a next generation wave of players where right now we have the kind of WebEx type collaboration, but I think you'll see Atlassian, bought Jitsi and HipChats, and then you have Slack. So it may be the more natural way to do a group meeting is you're all in chat or some collaboration software, and then you're in IM, and then you escalate in. So probably I think you'll see those two paths as a really interesting next gen wave of how people use video, where it's just something integrated into the app itself. It's not even a standalone thing.
Yeah, I think people really love that dynamic. I know Cisco is pushing Spark very hard. I've seen reports on Slack that it's growing faster than Facebook did at this point in time in its history. I mean, it's massive. Akano's popular, Unify Circuit. People like that dynamic, so I definitely could see it being popular. Right now, I'm mostly seeing it being used internally. People get it, and they have their own groups in there. there is the ability in a lot of them to add externals to a group. I know it's done, but I don't think culturally we're doing it a lot yet. But once we do, that'll be a great, we're doing a project with externals. You just make your room, and then everyone's in it. And whenever you need to jump on video, you jump on video.
Yeah, I'm not using it internally right now, but I'm on a couple of external groups where I'm advising companies, and I have the external invite to Slack, so I get that view that way. So I think I'm experiencing Slack more as an external party than internal.
Excellent. So it is happening. That's great.
Yeah.
So let's jump into the hardware piece of the puzzle. I'm not sure how much there is to say here, and obviously you'll know a lot more than me, and the longer that you're there, the more you'll know. But it always seemed to me that the hardware piece of the puzzle is relatively simple, especially now that we don't need codecs, that our computers are codec. If you can make an affordable camera and headset, and rely on the software guys to make the cloud in the middle, that's really all there is to it. Is there something more? Do we need a big shakeup, or is it enough to just kind of promote this new middle ground camera we're talking of that does the huddle room job without being too expensive or not having the functionality?
I think everything always seems simpler from the outside and the inside. Like people always say software is simple, but then you get into it and you realize software is really hard. I think there are a lot of similarities to hardware in that it seems simple, but there's the manufacturing element and supply chain and quality. And I think that one of the things I liked about Logitech is they had 20 years of experience at really understanding how to build video conferencing hardware, but also having that whole end-to-end channel. So I think lots of people could start companies and do that, but I think there's a lot of value in looking at experience of building something end-to-end. And I think it's one of the things that I liked about Logitech is that we have everything from our own manufacturing and design of the raw inputs all the way down to the channel. And I think the other thing about it is just the design. There's kind of the human factors that we all think about. So a lot of people can make hardware, but to make something that it really is technically working but aesthetically pleasing, I think we all know from our experience that not everyone's really good at doing that. So I think a lot of people could make it, but there really are a lot bigger barriers to entry to building hardware than there are in software. I guess in a way they're different ones. But one of the things that's really fun for me is I've spent most of my career working at smaller companies and startups, and people have asked me about my experience so far at a large company, but I think I'm more of an entrepreneur where I have a lot of latitude to create and solve a lot of these problems in a way that scales without having to go do the entrepreneur begging for money part.
This must be very different from you. You have so many more resources now. If you have all these internal departments to work with, I guess it's a little off topic, but I'm interested. How different is it being an exec at Logitech with all of these resources as opposed to being a startup guy at Vidtel?
Well, I think in a way I'm getting the best of both worlds in that I'm getting access to a lot of resources, which is always harder at a smaller company, but I'm also being given a lot of latitude and mandate to really have a vision for what we can do in video and then go build it. So I think a lot of times when you're at a smaller company, you have a vision, but you can't spend $10 because you have to beg, borrow, and steal. And here I'm being given the latitude to have a great team and go off and create these fun things and solve problems without having the downside of not having the resources. So I'm having a blast.
That's awesome. And that kind of leads into my next question. In my mind, Logitech, there's two Scott Whartons they could have hired. There's the 20-year seasoned technology exec who can take, hey, we're selling good stuff, everyone loves Logitech, we're doing good, kind of look for efficiencies, keep things going along the path. Or there's Scott Wharton, the visionary who started Vidtel, who could shake things up and make everything different. Are they looking for you to, main the helm and keep things running, or are they looking for you to go wild?
I think so. One of the things that's really interesting about the CEO of Logitech is that most I think people would have gone out and hired more of the person that was more of the same, someone who a lot of industry experience at a bigger company. And I think a testament to him hiring me is that he valued a lot of the experience I had of being innovative and really giving me and the team the latitude to be able to be more innovative and do those things. So I think part of what I think you'll see is we have a great base. So it's not like it's a restart. Great products, great team. I think I was hired really just to bring the team and our division to the next level.
So you are free to have some fun and be creative. So that leads to my next question is, um, you're still new. Are we kind of in assessment and looking at how things work and learning, and then we're going to brainstorm and come up with some visions? Or are you walking in with day one with anything that I want to do some things different? And if so, is there anything you could share with us?
Well, I think if you're smart about it, you never come in with preconceptions day one, right? You want, and I spend a lot of time talking to the team and speaking with people inside and outside the company to try to come up with some ideas. But I think we're at a point now where we have a pretty clear strategy in that we really want to make great hardware. We're not going to create our own service. We want to focus on the mass market. We don't want to do super high-end $250,000 telepresence systems. There's a huge opportunity between that range of, right now we're 500 to 1,000. So let's say somewhat within that range of creating incredible products that any business can afford. And then we really want to be very tightly tied to the service providers that are out there. So we want to work with them, find customers together, and then make sure that the link between software and hardware is really tight so that we can do things together that we couldn't do. I think it's a pretty simple vision. And part of what's funny for me being on the hardware side is that most people go, I don't really want to do hardware. Nobody wants to do hardware. I want to create services and cloud. Cloud is sexy. And I think that creates a great opportunity for us to really be a leader in hardware and make sure that we complement all these great companies out there building the cloud services. So I think it's a good opportunity for us too. But now, the challenges you said are we just doing more of the same? I think if we went from having hundreds of millions of people using it to billions, that would be really personally gratifying. I love the fact that I'm doing something new, and I hadn't really spent a lot of time in hardware, and I'm learning, but to have the impact to go from on that level where billions of people are using your products, that's just that's awesome.
And the good news, in my opinion, is that the remaining challenges, none of them are serious enough to really bother me. None of them are serious enough to say, you know what, I'd still rather use the phone. Yeah, there's still some challenges, and that's great because it's work for us to do and things for me to write about. But none of them are barriers to adopt. We used to have barriers to adoption. People are not going to use video conferencing because A, B, and C are wrong. I think those have been solved. Now it's just a matter of improving the experience.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. That's why, going back to where we said, where is Vidtel and where is Logitech? I see us at the beginning. We're at the end of the beginning. That beginning was really, how do you make video conferencing from a novelty or something that IT imposed upon you to something that people actually like using? It's fun. It gives you more. And I think you're right. I think we're there. And now it's just a matter of, all right, how do we keep making it that much better that people really will want to fully embrace it and then do things that we haven't really even thought of doing yet.
Yep. And that's going to be the fun stuff. I love hearing about new uses. I love hearing about Scrum teams using video. That's not what we were talking about 5 years ago. We were talking about just making it work. And now we're talking about what people are doing with it. And that's a very different story.
I heard yesterday one of our customers, we were talking about one of our channels, and we were talking about our end customers and what are they doing with their products. And one of them is using the CC3000 to do a remote yoga class.
Exactly. I love that stuff.
And my wife said, kind of like on TV? I said, yeah, like on TV, but interactive. She goes, oh, that's kind of cool. I would never have thought of marketing to people doing remote yoga classes, but hey, if someone's really good at yoga and you're at home and you want to dial in and
yeah, or if you're a yoga instructor and you have space in your home, but you can't afford to rent out a studio, this is a way for you to provide that service.
It's kind of like, in a way, it's like Airbnb for yoga, but video enables people to do it at home, right? You can have all these people around the world that are yoga instructors, and they're watching the kids are taking a nap, you do your yoga class, you charge your $15 a pop, you make $100. This is what, the technology is going to enable all these interesting ways of people using it that we haven't even, we would go, that's weird, but I guess it works.
It makes sense. I could see someone who's a busy home worker like me, was into yoga, the time to get into the car, drive to the yoga studio, change, all the other stuff, as opposed to just go to the living room and put on the TV.
Yeah. I'll link her up with you if you're interested.
I might need it. All right, well, I think we covered everything that we're looking to cover today. Is there anything I forgot to ask you you'd like to add, or?
No, I think we covered a lot. So I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you and everybody who's watching, and look forward to continuing the conversation.
Yeah, me too. And with the way things are developing, I think we're going to have plenty to talk about for a long time. So thanks again for joining me, and thanks everyone for watching. If you like this, please check out more of the same at letsdovideo.com. And to make sure you don't miss anything, please sign up for our free newsletter at letsdovideo.com/newsletter.